There has been consternation about whether or not things will look the same or things will look vastly different for Michigan football in 2024. And while we are a week and a half away from the spring game, when we can finally at least get our eyes on what they've been up to under Sherrone Moore, we're kind of getting a little bit of a taste of exactly what this team at least is now, and therefore what it might be. And so we're going to talk about that here on this episode of Locked On Wolverines.
You are Locked On Wolverines, your daily podcast on the Michigan Wolverines, part of the Locked On Podcast Network.
Happy Monday. We are back and doing it. Locked On Wolverines podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. I am your man on the ground, Isaiah Hole, publisher of Wolverines Wire through USA Today Sports Media Group. If you are a Clips crazy person, I hope that you got that opportunity to go and check that out. I was at least thankful for someone to lent me their glasses when I was walking into the grocery store after the press conference today, so I at least got to see it at about 98% totality. Nonetheless, we did have a press conference today, and I think some misconceptions are being kind of cleared up. And it's funny because it's been something of a back and forth when it's come to what is this Michigan team going to be. Because certainly there has been some elements where it's, okay, this is going to be certainly a pretty much a facsimile of what it was under Jim Harbaugh. There's some that are saying it's going to look a lot different. Defensively, Wink's going to make things look a lot different. He's going to be blitz heavy. Guys aren't going to be dropping into coverage. It's going to just be a lot different. That there's different elements that are changing and whatnot. But I think that now we're kind of getting a little bit of an idea of what this is. So based off of some of the things that we've heard throughout all of spring ball, even though that you have a Makari Page, who again, I'm pretty sure was messing with me, say that it's completely different. The defense is completely different. Basically, everyone outside of Makari Page has said it's exactly the same pretty much. To the point even where when we talked to TJ Guy today, he was asked, like, do you feel like with Wink Martindale being more of a blitz happy type of defensive coordinator, you're not going to be, do you feel like that suits your skill set more because you're not going to be dropping into coverage? And TJ Guy says, oh, I'm dropping into coverage quite a bit. So it doesn't seem like there is much of a difference there, right? And that does make it feel a little bit more like it is being tailored to what was all his Wink Martindale system is being tailored to what has already been in Ann Arbor. And one of the things I thought was really interesting is just hearing about him and how he just is a really, they keep on saying like he's this NFL guy. He's really savvy. He comes in and he takes some of the things that we already had and he kind of improves upon it. That was one of the things that was, and I'm paraphrasing, but that was one of the things that was uttered today. So that kind of indicates that, yes, it is going to be a little bit of pretty much the same thing. But again, it's building upon it. And from other things that we are hearing, it does sound like that is the case, right? Like we heard, a mention today of the Beat Ohio drill again. So it's like, okay, well, that's standard fare now in Ann Arbor, the Beat Ohio drill. But we also heard about the Quest for Atlanta drill, which sounds like it's kind of the same thing. And it's kind of like last year they had the Beat Ohio drill and they had the Beat Georgia drill. Beat Ohio drill is essentially, I think, a 9-on-7 or a 7-on-9 period. I'm not sure exactly which. The Beat Georgia drill, I think it was like the Beat Ohio drill was 9-on-7. The Beat Georgia was like a 7-on-9. And then the Quest for Atlanta drill, it's an 11-on-11. I don't know how that differs necessarily from just being a good on good period, right? But I'm sure there is some kind of differentiation. Now, if you didn't know, when I say Quest for Atlanta, they're not just going looking and playing Georgia Tech, right? That's not what they're aspiring to. Hopefully, if they play Georgia Tech this season, chances are something went horribly wrong. But no, it is that is where the national championship game is this next season. So they are taking what already existed and they are building on it, it sounds like, right? So you still have guys dropping into coverage. When we talk about the offense and everything, it's still, you ask Max Bredesen, how does this look different? And he's like, it really doesn't. I'm still basically doing the same things. There's other guys who are doing the same things. While there's not a lot of depth behind Max as far as his actual fullback position, it's another walk-on whose name I can't remember because it wasn't one that I've heard very often. Actually, I think I remembered it. It's Huffman, I'm pretty sure. Nonetheless, it's everything seems pretty much the same. Now, are they going to do some things differently? Absolutely, because at least you hope, because Donovan Edwards is not a Blake Corum type. And I understand that he is working on trying to become more of that. But hey, what is his skill set? Utilize his skill set to the best of his ability. You add in the fact that you had, you might even be going a little bit more back to 2021, especially if you don't, since you aren't going to have a JJ McCarthy at quarterback. If you can find someone that's at least Cade McNamara level, you've got thunder and lightning again, because when you look at what Donovan is, he was lightning to kind of begin with. And then you add in the fact that Kalel Mullings is a Hassan Haskins type, you've got thunder back. So there's certainly a lot of opportunities for this Michigan team to be at least of the era of the last 3 years, which is good because that was when Sherrone Moore had kind of taken over prominence. But when I asked, like, what's the difference? What has Sherrone changed? Has he changed anything? And everyone's like, some things are different. And when they say, like, what? And they're like, nothing. There's nothing that's really changed. So then again, I mean, obviously we'll see when we get to games and everything. That might be where things are a little bit different. Maybe. I don't know. But at this juncture, it really feels like things have stayed pretty much the same. And that it's, except for they are building upon what they've already done. Even though you've lost all those guys, they're able to build. And a large part of that, the reason why they're able to do that is because of culture, which is what we are going to talk about next. Because the culture part is still, it really still feels like it's booming. And getting a little bit of an outside perspective from Josh Preeb, I think that was a little bit interesting as well. So we're going to get to that. We're going to talk a little bit about the quarterback scenario, because obviously things are continuing to move in a direction there. So we're going to discuss all of that here in just a moment. But before we do, when you're hiring for your small business, you want to find quality professionals and that are right for the role. And that's why you've got to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs has the tools to help you find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. It's like dipping in your own personal transfer portal, and it's open at all times for you. LinkedIn is not just another job board. Much like Connor Stallions, LinkedIn has a vast network of more than 1 billion professionals. He had more, he had 1 trillion, which makes it the best place to hire. So it gives you access to the professionals you can't find anywhere else. LinkedIn does all of that while making the process easy and intuitive. They have more than 1 billion. There's only 7+ billion on this earth. So it's pretty remarkable, to be honest. Hiring is easy when you've got that many quality candidates. So easy, in fact, that 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours. And LinkedIn is constantly finding ways to make the process easier and better. They even just launched a feature that helps you write job descriptions, making your life just that much easier. So post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's post that job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. Terms and conditions apply. All right, so let's continue on here. So culture. It's interesting hearing things about culture still. We've been hearing it all for the last 2 weeks, right? The guys who are now going to be the stars, the Colston Lovelands, the Will Johnsons, the Mason Grahams, the Kenneth Grants, the Donovan Edwards, all hearkening back to when they first arrived, and whoever it was that was a prominent player that was kind of vocal and leading the charge at that time. Today, again, like I said, we met with Max Bredesen, and one of the things that he had said, he's like, hey, I've been here for a few years now. When I came in 2021, and I learned from Josh Ross and Aiden Hutchinson what this is supposed to be. And because we've learned what this is supposed to be, that is what pushes us forward, right? They know what it's like to be on the mountaintop. And I thought was an interesting thing that he said about what drives us now, right? The doubters were what drove them, coming out of 2021, losing to Georgia, losing a game to TCU that they didn't expect to, and also should not have, is what drove them last year. And now it's more, we want to be able to relive that feeling. Like, we crave the feeling that we had, beating Ohio State, winning the Big Ten, making it to the Rose Bowl, beating Alabama, winning a national championship. We crave that, and we want it again. And for those who don't know, we're explaining to them how glorious it is and making them crave it as well. So the culture, that is still like the most key part to all of this, right? Because for all of the people that screech cheating, and they're still, it's funny how much I feel like idle hands or something, because it's like you've got Buckeye Scoop still like the hammer's coming down any second. It's going to be bad guys. Like, meanwhile, they haven't even gotten an NOA. So the hammer, hammer ain't coming down. I posted on the fort. The hammer's coming down on the new construction project happening at Hoover Street, Hoover and Division. Hammers, screwdrivers, heck, even wrenches too. So it's for all the people who talk about all the Connor Stallion stuff, as it like, well, what changed in 2021? Well, I'll tell you what changed. The culture changed. And for anyone who's followed this team for any amount of time can tell you that was a sizable difference, right? And I had heard about it since spring ball in 2021. I remember running into a staffer at the car wash on South Industrial or North Industrial. I don't remember what industrial. Running into a staffer at the car wash, and we talked for a couple minutes, and he's like, listen, the culture that's a real deal. Like, I know that you're hearing it in spring ball Zoom press conferences here, but that's like a real thing. Like, it's like guys are getting after it in a way that we've never seen. They're taking leadership in ways that we haven't seen. And that's continued to perpetuate. That has not stopped. And when you think about, to me, the biggest thing that I said, the biggest issue Michigan had coming out of the 2019 season was that it felt like guys weren't held accountable. Listen, I love Donovan Peoples-Jones as much as the next guy, but how many drops against Ohio State until someone gets in his face, one of his teammates at least, and says, listen, bro, if that hits you in the hands, you got to come down with it. And, same thing with Sean McCune in that game. And I love that guy. There was just a stretch of like 8 drops in a row. It might have been higher than that. And Michigan still was able to drive the field because of the running game in that particular possession. I don't think they scored a touchdown, but they drove the field before they stalled out, if memory serves. But it was one of those things where it's like, in a positive culture, that doesn't happen because guys are accountable. They are playing for the player next to them. They're not playing for themselves. They're not playing for their draft stock. What makes Michigan different than an Ohio State right now? Well, I don't know Ohio State well enough to say this, but I would guess more so, especially because of the way that they've built their team, it's guys playing more for themselves. Maybe this year will be different, but in general, you see that. And that's when you see opt-outs. And that was what the issue was with some of these other Michigan teams. And then you look at Georgia, for instance, which has equally amount of talent. You had a team playing for each other. And how do you know that? Because when it came to playing in a meaningless bowl game, essentially, and going and playing the Orange Bowl against a decimated and opted out Florida State team, they still were like, this whole team's playing. We're all doing it for each other. We're all going out there, and it doesn't really matter if this is an exhibition. We're playing for the man next to us. Michigan had a lot of culture problems, right? Now, at 2019, you didn't have I don't recall any opt-outs in the bowl game. But you certainly, 2018, you had that, right? You had a really talented team in 2018. But when it came to the bowl game, I mean, you had pretty much not every star player, because you had Chase Winovich playing. You had Donovan Peoples-Jones playing. You had a lot of stars that were still playing in that game. But you had, no Rashawn Gary, no Devin Bush, no Karan Higdon, no Juwan Bushell-Beatty. Guys that could have played. Now, Bush, maybe he was actually pretty injured, so he maybe would not have been able to. But other than that, guys, and Rashawn Gary had a lingering injury. But nonetheless, I mean, last chance to strap on the winged helmet, to play next to my brother. Like, that's when you start getting into this place where guys are sitting there saying, like, I'm not gonna risk it The difference between a Jake Butt and something else, right? Jake lost a lot because of him strapping it on and playing one more game. But at the same time, he gained a lot, right? You look at where his career is going and what it's going to be. In a lot of ways, he'll have gained a lot. And that is because he was a culture guy. And the culture is still growing and it's moving in the positive direction. So Josh Preeb, I think that was the thing, is one, because the part of the culture that is really important, this is talent as well. But we heard from all three players today, somewhat uninitiated in the first, and I think also with Josh Preeb as well. So the first and the third that we had today, it was them saying that practice is harder than games. Now, Josh Preeb doesn't know, in a lot of ways, right? Because he hasn't played an actual game for Michigan yet. But certainly he must, he's played in games. He's played against a lot of talent. And he's like playing up against Nathan Graham and Kenneth Grant on a down-by-down basis is a heck of a lot harder than playing in any game that I played in. So I think that all of these things kind of work together. And they help propel Michigan forward regardless of all the turnover. Now, the only issue is who's going to be the quarterback, because that was the big difference, right? Why was Michigan better the last 3 years than any of these other years? Well, they had better quarterback play from both Caden McNamara as well as from J.J. McCarthy. And what is Michigan going to get? We're going to talk about that here in just a moment. All right, let's continue on. A few more minutes here. I know we're going kind of probably a little bit shorter than the average episode here, but we took a little time off, both writing and the show. Just needed a little bit of a break. But a day like today, it's like I come back. I'm like, all right, we're gonna write. We're gonna do all this. We're gonna walk. We're gonna go to the gym. And it's whenever I get these bold ideas in my head, I hurt myself, and I tried to basically carry in an entire Costco basket in one fell swoop, and my back was not happy with that. Still went for a walk. We're still doing the podcast, but that means that, to some degree, might be going a little bit shorter today, so I can kind of rest up and hope that tomorrow will be a better day. People say I'm often sick. I am not often sick. I'm often allergic. And I am often injured, which is why gym routines have not been as good as they used to be, because I hurt my back all the time. It's what happens when you turn 40-something. All right, quarterback play. So seeing multiple reports from multiple people, Chris Ballas, Sam Webb, some others, kind of talking about what's happening in practice and everything from the people who have seen. And one of the things that I kind of said on the M Zone on Friday is that everyone, when it comes to the quarterbacks, I said this on the show last week too. When it comes to the quarterback room, no one is getting more publicity than Alex Orji. That, it's lots of talk of he's making these wild plays. He can throw. He's got all these different attributes. I can't tell you really much of anything about any of the other guys, which means that Orji is certainly the guy that's in the best position at this juncture. That said, it still sounds like he is inconsistent. And I hope he rounds into form, because I think there's a lot that could be there. But it sounds like as far as his ability to make wow plays is there, but sometimes it's the easy throws that aren't necessarily connecting, and obviously you need that to happen, otherwise you're kind of up a creek, right? Like you take advantage, you kind of take advantage in your mind of JJ making the routine play, and for certainly a long time, people would get, we're getting mad at just about every other quarterback that came through here for not making that routine play. So if Alex Orji's not making the routine play, the wide open underneath or, quick out or any of those things, if those aren't coming easy, then you absolutely have to keep looking, which could set you back a little bit. You still have Jack Tuttle, who's available, but he's just not available in practice yet because he's been injured. So, because he is also, like me, somewhere in his 40s. So, you hope that that either Orgy can elevate his game to become that more consistent player. Sometimes guys are what they are and everything. Sometimes guys take longer to develop than you think. I know a lot of people love to sit in and say, well, that guy's a known commodity. That guy, he's not going to change. Certainly people were doing that with Cade entering his last year as a Wolverine. But yet you look around the league and you see a what the heck? Michael, not even Michael. Bo Nix. Well, how'd it go? I understand Joe because Joe rhymes with Bo, but Michael, I think I was going to say Michael Penix for some reason. But look at a Bo Nix who certainly, I don't think that anyone at Auburn was particularly aggrieved at losing him to Oregon. And certainly no one at Oregon was looking at yay, we got Bo Nix. And then he turns into a amazing player. So guys can change and grow as they go through time, right? And you see it in the NFL, right? Tom Brady was a much different player in the pros than he was at Michigan. So, guys can kind of move up and become something different. Patrick Mahomes wasn't Patrick Mahomes until he was with the Kansas City Chiefs. So, but part of it is consistency. So what Michigan absolutely needs from the quarterback position, I would rather take a guy that's going to dink and dunk down the field, but complete about 70-75% of the passes, which is a high number. But I'd rather have that than a guy who completes 56% of the passes, but has a couple big wow plays here and there, but misses some easy ones. You would rather have the more consistent player. So whatever it takes for Michigan to find that. Now, the question is, if you do have to dip into the portal, who's going to even be available? Because quarterback feels like a position that gets kind of who's going to leave at this point? Anyone who was going to leave, I felt was going to leave more early. And I understand that there's a lot of people on the message boards and the insiders and all of them saying they could look to the spring portal, but you can only take what's available. And right now, I don't imagine that there's anyone that's anywhere remotely tantalizing available in the portal at this juncture. I was going to look it up, but that's just going to be too much work. And there's no guarantees that someone's going to enter. Now, sometimes guys do. And certainly there's times where guys leave late, right? Michigan got Jake Rudock late. He was a post-spring edition for Michigan. So yes, sometimes you are able to get a guy that's serviceable, that can come in and do things in the later editions. But that has to be someone that's going to be smart and quick learner, able to kind of come in, ingratiate themselves. And certainly you hope that you can kind of get back to quarterback as captain. I know JJ wasn't an actual captain, but you hope you can kind of get to that quarterback as leader, because I think that was a crucial part to keeping, again, the culture. But that's the crucial thing, right, is having the quarterback. Because as much as I think that Wilton Spate and Shea Patterson get a really bad rap from Michigan fans in a lot of ways, they weren't on that level as Cade and JJ ended up being. Wilton, I think, had that capability. I think Shea did too. Shea didn't play bad against Ohio State either of his years that he played against them. It's not his fault the defense was terrible, right? He put up 39 and 27, and certainly they left points on the field more so in 2019. But it's not his fault that the defense gave up 62 and 56. But certainly it feels like that there's a lot more there that they could have had. JJ was the culmination of having the quarterback and the defense together was a match made in heaven. Michigan needs to find that as well, because no matter how good the defense is, you don't want to end up in a 2017 position where that defense, because there doesn't matter how good it is, at some point it will break. Iowa breaks, right? And you don't want to be that. All right, that's going to do it for us today. We'll be back when we're back. So thanks for watching. Thank you for listening. We will talk to you again soon. Peace.